Well, we'll get started. So hello and welcome everyone to Artwork Archive's Art of Collection Management, planning your art shows, strategies for success from start to finish. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. A few housekeeping things before we jump into the webinar. Firstly, this webinar will be recorded and shared within 24 hours to all registrants. So you have to jump out early, or if you don't want to take notes and you just want to watch it later, you can do so or share it with your friends. And again, you'll receive an email from us within the next 24 hours with the recording and the slides. We've also saved time for questions at the end, so please submit questions and comments. You can do so with the Q&A button that's located at the bottom of your screen. If you're an iPad, it may be 3 dots that you have to click to access. And again, feel free to introduce yourself via chat, and please use the chat for any technical support. My teammate Cassidy is on to assist. And if you need access to captioning, you can click Live Transcript on your bottom panel, then select Show Subtitle. The automated transcript is available to those on Zoom desktop or the Zoom mobile app, and is available if you're on the 5.02 version or higher. So if you're on the older version, it may not be available. Time for intros. I'm thrilled to be joined by today's esteemed panel of experts. We'll just give brief intros. I'll start with myself since I'm at the top. I'm Elysian McNiff-Kogelmeyer. I'm on the Artwork Archive team. I'm head of growth. My pronouns are she and her. I am a fair-skinned redhead wearing a brown shirt and a red and gray wool sweater. I'm sitting in my office, but my background is blurred. I am located in Denver, Colorado, and I want to acknowledge that I am on the traditional territory of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations. A little bit more about me. I am also the daughter of artists and art therapists and art educators. So the creative process has always been in my blood. An abbreviated CV, you don't need to know much about me, but I have spent time running a public art program, working within museums, serving as curator, writing publications for public art publications, and creating online art classes. I'm grateful to work with arts organizations like yours with the work I do here at Artwork Archive, and I'm thrilled to work with Kathy and Zoe through my work at Artwork Archive as well. So with that, Kathy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Kathy Talley, and I am the visual arts coordinator here at Michigan Medicine at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where I am currently right now, sitting in the basement of the hospital. So I've been with this program for 22 years. We were one of the first arts and healthcare programs in the nation, I think Iowa and Duke being the other two. And what I personally do here is I run a rotating exhibits program with 9 galleries throughout the health system. And then I also have an art cart program, which is run by volunteers, where they take art to the patient rooms for the patients to choose their art during their stay. So I am fair-skinned with long blonde hair, and I also have a blurred background. But yeah, I studied photography in college and went back to school later in life and got an MBA in healthcare administration.
Cool. Thank you, Kathy. Zoe?
Hi, I'm Zoe Woodworth. I'm the brand and design director of Hand Auditorium, which is the performing arts center associated with the University of Iowa. We're a multidiscipline performing arts center, presenting ballet, symphony orchestras, contemporary music, Broadway shows throughout the year. We also do a yearly youth art show with the K through 12 schools in the area, which is how I came to Artwork Archive. I have a background as an artist. I went to Carnegie Mellon, but I've been working as a designer for the last, I don't know how long, many years. I'm a Caucasian woman with short brown hair, and I'm sitting in a blurry office.
Thanks. Yeah, we're sharing what we look like for those that may be visually impaired joining us on the panel. So want to make sure for those that are sitting with us on the webinar, we want to make sure this is accessible for all. Just briefly, who is Artwork Archive, or rather, what is Artwork Archive? If you found our webinar through one of the many listservs that we shared it. So for those that are new to us, Artwork Archive is an online art collection management system, and we work with artists, collectors, and collecting institutions all over the world to help them organize, manage, and share their artwork and collections. And a lot of that is exhibitions. I am lucky, as I said earlier, to be able to work with the incredible institutions of Gifts of Art at Michigan Medicine and the Hancher Auditorium at the University of Iowa. I'm going to pause here and also share that we are going to use the organization part of our platform for examples. Kathy and Zoe do use Artwork Archive, so that's what our examples will be. But if you have a collection management system already and you have a public portal that's accessible, a lot of what we're speaking to for strategies can be accessible. Additionally, if you are an artist like Zoe that has come to this presentation and you're interested in putting on your own shows or collaborating with your local curators and nonprofits, hopefully these best practices can speak to you as well. And if you're working on the artist platform, part of Artwork Archive, it may look a little different. So just want to call that out. And also Cassidy, who joins us today from the Artwork Archive team, helping with tech, made a really good point. She's an artist herself. And she said it's really great to get a behind the scenes look for artists to understand what goes into a show. So hopefully this will be informative for everyone. Today's journey, our agenda, what does it look like? I love alliteration, so I picked all the P words, but it's the roadmap from planning an art show from concept to cleanup. So we'll get to all the different stages at a high level with some tips. You know, we can't cover it all in just an hour. We want to save time for questions. So first, how do you get the word out and diversify the offerings of your artists represented within your art shows? We just wanted to start off here because there are a number of ways to share out your opportunities. The first being at the top of this list, Artwork Archive actually hosts a call for entry page where artists can come to and filter by, as you can see on the screenshot, opportunity type, category, visual arts, mixed media, photography, film. They can also filter by location. So if you are hosting a local art show, or if you want to gather international artists or national artists, you can spread out the word and hopefully, again, diversify the artists that are coming in that you are representing at your institution. And for the artists on here, this is a great resource too to find your next opportunity. A number of others, I will send the slides. They are hyperlinked, so you can check them out. And, you know, never forgetting that you can also post these opportunities on social media. Kathy and Zoe, do you have anything to add to this about how you get your word out?
I'll just say that our youth art show is a physical art show that we've traditionally done, and we have a liaison to the K through 12 art teachers in the region. So when it came time to pivot to doing an online show, we went about it in just much the same way.
So, and we also do a call for exhibits, and we do ours nationally and annually. So every spring we do it. You know, I send it out to hundreds and hundreds of different arts organizations. I advertise with Artwork Archive, but we use Submittable for our jurying software for that. So it's really streamlined the process for us.
Great. And we'll get into Submittable a little bit more too. And that also made me think of something that now just left my brain. And so I'm just going to keep on going. It's a good sign for the beginning of the webinar. Oh, artist rosters. That was the other thought I had is a lot of organizations have artist rosters and they, you know, build up the list so then they can market opportunities to that roster as well. And so that's another thing to consider. All right, organizing your exhibit. There's a lot here. we're not going to cover Gantt charts, but rather, we're going to break down some elements that simplify, hopefully, the process, simplify and streamline the process, which can be a lot, especially if you're like Kathy, managing 9 locations, or it doesn't have to be 9 locations if you're just having an annual show and you want to simplify that because there's a lot of factors and variables. So number 1, simplify how you gather the artwork and artist information, so that, I think Zoe, you said, so you don't have to babysit the participants and hold a lot of hands, because you probably don't have time for it because you're juggling a lot of other things. So, the first element being, after you have promoted the show and gotten the word out, then how do you simplify the process of collecting the artwork submissions and the information from your participating artists and curators? And so, Kathy, you mentioned the artist upload form. It's a tool within Artwork Archive. So when we marketed this webinar, we said that we'll cover some Artwork Archive tools for those that use our platform. If you do use our platform, there is an artist upload form in which you can send this to your artists and they send you the images, the information. As you can see in the screenshot, they can update their contact information because we're moving, we're getting married, we're getting divorced, we're changing our names, whatever it may be. But Kathy, do you want to share how you've been using this tool to simplify your process?
Yeah, so as Elysian said, I'm actually I have 9 galleries that I change within a very short period of time, about 4 days. So I have 9 galleries going out and 9 galleries coming in. So for me, I'm working with 18 artists at a time. So it really has been helpful for me to put some of the workload onto their plate. And so essentially that means that they have to upload the title of their work. I only ask for certain information. So I need the title, I need the medium, I need the price if the work's for sale, and then the dimensions of the work. So really that's what I need from them, and I need them to do it grammatically correct. So just like translating that to them, they receive an email. I actually send them a sample screenshot of what they'll be seeing on their side of the Artwork Archive, so they know exactly the fields that they're going to be filling out.
Yeah, and I'll take a step backwards, actually. So I jumped into this upload form, but what this does is that when the artist fills it out, all the information that they submit is then sent to your Artwork Archive account. So it's in your database. So then you can start going through, reviewing it, proofreading it, as you've mentioned in the past, Kathy, and getting it ready for your exhibition. Other institutions use Google spreadsheets. Zoe, that's what you used in the past. Kathy, you also mentioned Submittable. So Submittable is a great resource for an open call, and you don't know who's going to submit yet, and they can send information to you. There is a price tag to it, so generally people decide to use that and pay for it. Is there anything within that process I left out, Kathy?
So I have to say, one thing that has been really beneficial to us, so let's say I want to bring somebody in, maybe for like a DEI show or something from another department. I can very simply create a tear sheet or a contact sheet that lists the information with images and share that with other people. And that's been really helpful for us with our team, and just even proofing information, because everything that's going to be seen online is also seen physically here at our galleries on site at the hospital. So we want to make sure all the information is correct.
Yeah, exactly. So getting to that proofreading process. And then also, as you mentioned, tagging for DII. So as you're going through submissions, and there's this exhibition that you're planning for, but you may have others down the pipeline, being able, maybe the artist isn't a great fit for this show, but tagging that they would be great for an upcoming show that's maybe more for emerging artists, or their work speak to a more abstract portrayal of the theme that's happening, 3 months from now. I'm a visual person, so I like to just give examples. Here we are in Artwork Archive. So to show you where you enable that artist upload form, lives within contacts. In order to send the form, the artist must be in your contacts. As you can see, you can create groups, which is lovely to track your BIPOC artists, your female artists, your local artists, your international artists, your emerging artists. There's so many. But to scroll down here, you can enable them to upload artworks directly into your account. You turn it on. The system generates a URL, which you send to them. You give them a password, and then they start submitting, and then they'll be in your account. The other thing to note, say they submit this piece of artwork, you can add tags both on the piece and on the contact record for future reference. And so ocean, seascape, whatever it may be, for you to be able to recall and gather information for future exhibitions. Zoe, anything that you'd like to speak to?
No, I wish I would have used that tag feature on our stuff. I'm seeing stuff and I'm like, oh, I should have done that.
Still not too late. I know, I joke. I do these webinars a lot. For those that are watching, you may be like sick of my face. But it's always great for the panelists too to see, what is available to them. And that's hopefully the goal with this webinar too as well. So once you have those artworks compiled, they're in, you've organized, so whether you've used a Google spreadsheet to collect or the artist upload form or submittable, and you have them compiled, hopefully in a database that is online, so it's accessible, so you don't have to be on your work computer. You can do this from the studio or for the home, wherever you may be. Once you have them all compiled, you may have an artist selection committee coming up. If your organization brings together a group to discuss what is going to be presented in the next show, we're showing you some ways of simplifying the communication and collaboration piece of that, and not having a bunch of emails with lots of attachments, or spending a lot of time gathering information from different files or emails and putting it in a PowerPoint or a PDF. I used to run a grant for public art, and I did a lot of that in my early 20s. It takes a lot of time, and something always gets left out. So here we have a tool to help simplify that process. Some of you may already be knowledgeable of private viewing rooms. It is a great way to share out artworks to a group. So if I click back into my screen, if you have an art database, you may have this available. If you're using Artwork Archive, you have it available as a private viewing room. But what it is you put the artworks that are going to be considered for your exhibition that you want the artist selection committee to review. It is URL based. So you put the artworks in that you've already compiled, that's already in your database, into this private viewing room, and you send it off as a URL to the group. You can even password protect it if you want for extra security. You send them a note, and then they can review the artworks. And so if I click into a piece, you can learn more. You can also include the artist bio as well. But what's great, say this is the piece. This is the one I want. I'm only picking one. I'm only allowed to pick one. I can favorite the piece. And when I do so, you'll be notified in your inbox, and you'll see it, and you'll see on the private viewing room who has voted for what. You can send a message. I love this piece. Does the artist have any more with more people in the water to show, like, joyous gathering or whatever it may be. And so your review panel can also send you comments on the pieces. And the purchase link there is just private rooms are also sent out to sell artworks as well. And so that's a really helpful tool to collect feedback on the show that you are preparing when you're using an art selection committee. They can review it before the meeting and during if you're meeting on Zoom or in person as well. Okay, the meat and potatoes. So also within Artwork Archive, we have an exhibitions tool, which is a big piece of the project management, the organization of all the different details of your exhibitions and your art shows that are coming up. Here I have a screenshot from Kathy's Gifts of Art program. As you can see, you can stay on top of tasks, deadlines, You can track your participating artists and artwork information. And I'm going to click back out to show how that is done. And if Kathy, if you want to start chatting about how you use the tool to keep everything organized.
Well, like I said, we have the 9 exhibit sites here. And so each gallery has their own exhibition page. And the beauty of this is, and on our own website, the links to that link to the public view on Artwork Archive actually look quite seamless. So it almost looks like it's coming right from our web page, but it's not. So I don't know if you want to show any of the public view pages, Alicia.
Yeah, well, I was just going to quickly scroll through. So this is for organizational purposes. You can keep track of your deadlines, drop-off dates, pickup dates. Those dates are also saved to your schedule. So then you're reminded, you can sync it to your calendar. You can know when the artist is going to be stopping by. You can also include additional media, which you'll see with Gifts of Art. It can be installation shots. You can have video. So once the show is installed, a walkthrough of the show, an interview with one of the artists or your curators. And so additional media, so great. We'll get into that a little bit more. You can also add any files, so your inventory list or a contract, whatever documentation you have, insurance for that show. But yeah, let's show the Gifts of Art. So on the back end, you can use the exhibitions tool within your database to keep track of all those details, but then it's also has a public portal to then share out your exhibition. And so here is an example from Gifts of Art. You have your exhibition statement, which is lovely. You know, you're a participating curator. Anything you'd like to say to this, Kathy?
Well, what I also like too is, and again, we've only been using this for about a year, so I feel like we're still learning, but you know, I have a lot of artists that want to either do demos or share a little bit more of their process, and this really provides a great opportunity for that too, without the artist having to be on site.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially being in a hospital. I mean, part of the reason we started with Artwork Archive is because, you know, COVID forced us to pivot, which has really in some ways been kind of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. We actually built out this exhibitions tool for those that have been with us for a number of years. We built it out during COVID. We have collections in which people would use those for exhibitions, but there was very much a need when doors were shut. People were quarantining to be able to still share out our artworks and our programming and our value and our artists. And so online exhibitions used to be an afterthought, or maybe something if we have time or resources, you know, in addition to an on-site exhibition. And what we're seeing, and we'll speak to farther down in the presentation, is now it's a complement to, we have hybrid events and how to juggle both. People are just putting on just virtual shows, you know, to showcase local artists or allowing their students to put up shows as well. And then I'll show the Hincher, because you have video embedded, Zoe, which is really great. Do you want to speak to what this video does? I can play.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Greetings and welcome to this very special place.
There we go. I'll just do a little bit. People can go watch it themselves. Just wanted to get
so as I said before, we used to do well, and we will again. This as a physical exhibition in the public air of the auditorium, but COVID forced us, you know, to shut our doors, and we wanted to do this as an online exhibition. So usually as part of the physical exhibition, we have, you know, an opening reception. Our executive director gives a speech, much like he was doing in that video. There's an awards ceremony, there's, you know, a program. So that all pivoted to online stuff. So we were just trying to capture as much of the spirit of that event through this exhibit as we could.
Yeah. I have a question. We didn't talk about this earlier when we were planning the exhibition, but is there anything that you have to take into account when you're putting children's work online, when you're taking the kids' art?
Well, I mean, because there were hundreds of children, and they were not themselves submitting the artwork. It was the art teachers submitting the artwork. The organizationally, how it came down was a little different.
Yeah.
But, and I know there's the option to build out profiles, for each of the students, but we didn't do that because the students usually just had one piece. But yeah, as far as I know, there weren't any other concerns. I mean, there's other than their name, there's no personal information about them.
Yeah. I just ask because sometimes people get a little worried about, youth and artworks online. So it's a great point. And the way that it's structured is, school first location, and then the participating artworks is just so great. And then also I'm going to go back to the slides because Zoe, you had a really great point to make when it came to organization of shows of let's all avoid additional work. Like, how can we do it? And where does a lot of work come from? It's proofing and taking all the information that has come in, especially if you're working with schools all around the state. Any tips that you have when it comes to keeping it all consistent for you?
Well, I wish I would have had a really firm template and said, like, this is how I want the title, each piece has to have a title, even if the title is untitled, this is how I want names formatted, because things came in all different formats and some things were blank, and I had made a Google spreadsheet to collect information and then ended up having to retype all that information in the artwork archive spreadsheet to get it populated. So when we do this again, I will be smarter and wiser and standardize it from the get-go.
And it won't be 100%. I know from running, it will not, but at least getting to 90 or 95% and not being at 50 and having to do a lot of editing.
Yeah.
Kathy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 22 years, and that's a hard thing, getting people to really honestly just read. Just as simple as you can write it, how the titles need to be grammatically, likewise for the mediums, and how their names have to match what's in the publicity that's going out to the general public. But thankfully it's really easy to edit on this side and in the artwork archive. So, but you don't want to be doing that if you've got 150 pieces of student art. I mean, you really do want the teachers to gather their information the right way. We have had student shows here too, so I'm very familiar. And then we have an employee art show too. So it's a similar thing when you have, non-professionals submitting work. So it's a little more guidance.
Yeah. And another aspect is if you are coordinating loans, like art show loans with other institutions, just reiterating the fact that, having everything organized and centralized in one place, your images, your documents, your dates, your details, your artist bios, so that you can easily share it out, to the loaning institution, so that you can promote it if you're trying to shop around an art show that you have. And the other great news is that, the work of putting this into a centralized database also makes sure that the information is accessible for future employees so that institutional knowledge doesn't get lost, but also your colleagues. So if you do have a marketing arm, making sure that they have the high-res images and the correct spelling of the artist's name, or how you want the artwork and the artist's name to be presented, all that information can easily be shared out. And again, avoiding a lot of back and forth. Okay. So what's the use of all this prep work if you don't get eyeballs on the art show, right? So we'll chat about marketing your art show. So we showed the online exhibition piece. Here are 2 screenshots from the Gifts of Art program, the exhibition we were just in with the dinnerware design collection. This may be rote by now for many of you. We've all seen the impact that online exhibitions have with increasing visibility, with an online presence. You'll promote discoverability if you host your institution and your shows online. And luckily, as we've been showing, there are CMSs like Artwork Archive and others that have a public portal, so that the art exhibitions that you're managing on the back end can easily be presented virtually to the public. And as I said, here is a great example. You can direct traffic to the public profile, and you can also embed exhibitions onto your own website, because that's a heavy lift. If you have 9 rotating spaces, or you have exhibitions once every month, populating that information on your website can be laborious, especially if you're not the one doing it and you have to get that information over and stay on task with like a webmaster, the marketing team, and tech. So I'll pause here and say that, if your CMS has the ability to embed onto a website like Artwork Archive does, it's great. All the information that you have compiled and put together for your exhibition can then be hosted onto your website. And I'll just show an example of that. And we've heard, an increase of traffic to shows, that's not necessarily from your geographic area. What's great about online is you're not beholden to just footsteps. And so the scope of your art show reaches beyond the boundaries of your gallery walls. And people are finding you through SEO, Googling the artist. If a researcher or scholar is Googling an artist, and they come upon the fact that that artist is being displayed in your art show, driving awareness to your arts organization. And here is an example of an exhibition being embedded on the New Mexico State University site, which is really great. So it's on their website. You can explore the artworks just like with the public profile. And I've heard from a number of institutions like NMSU and the Lilly Museum of Art at University of Nevada, Reno, is once they had that public presence, they saw an increase without any other variables being changed to the traffic to their site and the inquiries to their institutions. And so I just love these pieces. So I wanted to show that. We showed Zoe's institution, we showed gifts of art. One other thing to showcase and to think about when putting together your shows is, yes, there are, it's the body of artworks that you're putting together, whether it's a solo show or multiple artists, but also spotlighting the artists and their narratives and their process and their who they are, and being able to call that out is really great. So here within the exhibitions page on the public profile, you can also click in to learn more about the presenting artists. And for those that are participating in your shows, they're going to love it because they get an additional marketing tool. For those that, if you are a public art program watching this and you have a temporary rotating show out in, bike racks or electricity boxes, another great thing to think about is driving traffic to those public locations with an interactive map. And so here we have a screenshot from the interactive map on the Artwork Archive public profile. You can host walking tours, scavenger hunts. If you don't have an address and it's in a sculpture park, you can include geo coordinates, GPS, to help people find the artworks and to get there and experience it in person, which is, we can start doing that now. Oops. Okay, increasing engagement. So you installed it, you marketed it, you brought people to your art show. Now what? So we're going to get our audiences engaged with the show and create lasting impressions and memories and connections that will hopefully keep them coming back to your institution, to your portfolio, to your art shows. So we have some fun tips. So we've been talking about the obvious one, which is online exhibitions. They provide you the opportunity to display more information than just the object and perhaps the small amount of didactic text that is printed on a label. As you saw with the online exhibitions that we showed, you can include videos, walkthroughs, interviews with the curators, a speech from the director. You can include additional media images, whether it's installation shots, any other information. You can also hyperlink to additional narratives, resources that pertain to your exhibition in an educational context. Audio clips, there's a lot. So you're just not limited to the in-person response to the artwork when you're standing in front of it. And this also allows people to continue the engagement. Maybe they did come on site, but this way, if you share the public presence, they can review it later. Students writing about the show or sharing it with their families and friends. Guess what I just saw this weekend? This is a great slide because there's just some fun ideas that we've seen from clients, like Gifts of Art, on how to boost participation and engagement with exhibitions. And I would love, Kathy, for you to share your online voting example.
Oh, well, so for our employee art exhibit, we have about 30,000 employees here. And so that's one of our much loved exhibitions every year to showcase all the creative talents of our clinicians. But we also allow a People's Choice Award. So previously, people used to have to literally be on site, and they'd have to fill out a little ballot, stick it in a ballot box, and then of course I would have to tally that up later. But now with this being online, people literally can vote for a piece. They're allowed to vote once per email address. They can write comments. So it's been a really great way for me to capture people's thoughts about certain pieces, especially during COVID. It was just incredibly moving, some of the things that people would write about certain pieces. So, but it's been a wonderful way to engage our general public, our remote workers, our patients, and our visitors. So we went from, I think I'd probably average 100 votes on a on-site exhibit to now I'm over 500 votes. So it's been great.
And we were joking, you also get to discourage the very passionate ballot stuffers.
I don't mind people ballot stuffing when they're going up to their unit and they're saying, everyone, get online and vote for me, which is, what they do. And so everyone gets online and they start looking at the show, which is great. But, a lot of people are still remote here. So all these offsite employees are able to see the art too and see their colleagues. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, and also, perhaps for those watching, you work at an institution that has multiple campuses, whether it's a hospital or a university, and you have satellite campuses. And so a way to bring people together as community, even though we are, separately located, which is what's happening more so in our remote culture. Another thing to note that I've been seeing a lot of is using QR codes to continue exploration. So when mentioning the online exhibitions and the fact that you can share, more related information, ephemera, documentation, background, you can use QR codes to do that as well. So an example would be the University of Nevada, Reno's Lilly Museum of Art includes QR codes in their catalog when speaking to art shows. And those QR codes will go to a YouTube video that showcases an Indigenous tribe's background that is part of a show made and curated by an Indigenous artist. So providing background into their process, their culture. And you can include those QR codes on your labels too, that are either viewable on site or online. So again, providing more information and continuing the journey and the exploration and consuming and engaging and getting attached to the artworks that you are showing. You can also use QR codes to initiate surveys. So I'm on the art selection committee for Children's Hospital Colorado. And one of the things that I love that our curator does is every show on a big piece of foam board, she has a huge QR code and she has it spread out, asking people to give their feedback on the show. And the QR code goes to a survey. And so collecting feedback, on the works presented, how the information was displayed, what are people getting attached to, which I love. I mentioned earlier, online exhibits can also be curated by students. So if you are a university or college or prep school, giving these tools to your students and they put on their own show, either whether it's works from your collection or, working with local artists or their own work, if they're BFA or MFA students, a really lovely way to give them some hands-on experience before going out to the real world. And we don't have the answer for this, but one other thing that came up when we were planning this presentation is there a space still for virtual receptions and awards? And so, Kathy, working within a hospital setting, people aren't always on site. And what I responded with was during COVID, I saw a number of Zoom receptions. I actually just got invited to a Zoom reception celebrating the 100th birthday anniversary of Clark Hoolings, one of our great partners, renowned artist who has passed. And that foundation does a lot of work for preserving artistic legacies. But yeah, if you want to share in the chat, are you doing virtual receptions, like awards? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Are we over it? We just want to be glass in hand, wine glass in hand or beer and talking to people face to face, but kind of curious to see the lay of the land of what others are doing. Anything to add before I jump to the next slide? One of the things to note, boosting engagement is you can encourage your volunteers or your students to research objects, to write about your art shows. And then you can post it here. This is the Marjorie Barrick Museum of Art's public profile, and they use the news platform. But it's also a great way to get information out about your art shows and your artist and particular objects and their fun stories. Out into the general public for them to read and engage with, maybe before the show, or maybe they really attach to something and then they read about it afterwards. And this can be done on your blog as well, if you have a blog. Sometimes people just like good old paper. And so funny, this portfolio pages report generation within your database seems so basic to me, but whenever I show this to other organizations, it's like, yeah, this is great. So you can create portfolio pages for all of the artworks in your exhibition, hero images, didactic text, additional information that you want to include. You can print it and laminate it and leave it in the gallery for onsite. You can have these stapled and sent out with visitors. You can also send them virtually to folks before the event or afterwards. You can send this to professors, to school groups that are interested in your art shows. So let's not forget paper. Speaking of another type of paper, another big piece of art shows is the selling part. Are you selling your artworks as part of a fundraiser? Are you an artist watching this presentation and this is your means, this is your livelihood? And so speaking to the online sales piece, part of your planning your art shows, like how to think about it, we've seen great success with institutions moving their sales online in addition to on-site sales, as Kathy mentioned. And Duke University Hospital, their arts and health program, actually tripled their art sales with one exhibition. They have an annual holiday fundraiser. And by bringing it online, again, they weren't reliant on foot traffic. People who had attachment to the hospital, maybe they were alumni from the med school, family members that are in Wisconsin, could purchase artworks online. So thinking of that piece.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, our mission is really to enhance the environment of care. So when I'm seeking artists, I make sure that they're very clear that, we're a non-traditional venue. And so, sales isn't our number one thing. So it really is an added perk. And our sales really, really grew once we started the online spaces. So it's really helped in that area.
Yeah. And to be clear, if you're a museum, we're not selling your collection, maybe you're having a fundraiser and you're having local artists sell their artworks, or it's a fundraiser and staff members are selling their pieces, or whatever it may be. youth art shows, kids selling their artworks and getting that gratification. And so these benefits, none of them are really going to be like earth shattering, but, you're expanding your reach, you're growing your digital audience, you're making things more sustainable. You're not reliant on just foot traffic. The past few years showed us a lot of, obstacles can be thrown our way. And then it's a way to just, increase engagement and sales. And you can scale back on resources too. So online can be simple once you get your systems in place. And so less people, maybe, people and time and other resources that may otherwise take up space. So if you are using Artwork Archive, I just wanted to call out, the ways that you can solicit online sales and coordinate those. So if you have an online exhibition, you can have purchase links, as you probably saw in those examples. And so people will message you and say that they're interested in a piece. What's great is the challenge with online sales with an on-site exhibition is you don't want to sell the work twice. You don't want someone walking into the gallery and buying it on site, and then 2 days later, someone online, buying it because it's online. So this way, when it's online, they send a message and you can check, is it indeed available? So you don't have to ask the artist to make a second one or, have a poorly crafted email. If it is available, then you can use PayPal integrations generate an invoice, have a PayPal integration so that people can pay you directly via PayPal, whether it's their PayPal account or a debit card or a credit card. And then you can mark those sales. You can track your commissions. You can keep track of what you owe to the artist. You can keep track of your total sales. It's all logged within Artwork Archive. And speaking of logging and tracking, we'd be remiss not to talk about, reporting. And so once your exhibition is done and cleaned up, you're probably thinking about the next one. You're probably in the middle of the next one, honestly, but you definitely, and you probably don't want to stop and consider data and numbers, but it's important. And assessing makes us better with our next art show and in the future. So, thinking about what worked, what didn't work, looking at the data, looking at maybe those surveys and the feedback from those that visited. Also, this data demonstrates our impact, and it's helpful if we're applying to grants or looking for more resources from those higher up when we're presenting the impact of our art shows. And so this slide is a little bit of like the how-to. So with online shows, online exhibitions, you can track visitors with Google Analytics. You can track the demographics from Google Analytics to know more about your audiences. We propose, count your newsletter clicks to see the engagement. Are there certain shows that are getting more clicks than others? Solicit feedback, like we mentioned earlier with the QR code surveys. And then when you're gathering all this data and this information, store it, keep it centrally located. There's an additional file section within your exhibition, keep it all there. So when you report back on that particular show, you can share it out. And you can share it out with inventory reports, totals showing off all the sales in a really polished, streamlined way to impress those that you are reporting to. And these can also be shared in grants, etc. So a lot of talking, a lot of examples. Here's a lot of articles. So I'm a history major. I love words. But we've also written a number of articles and resources when it comes to art show planning and tips and strategies, whether it's the online sales piece, the online exhibitions, the organization and project management tips. So again, we'll be sending out this PDF of the slides so you can access these articles if you'd like to read them. I mentioned our blog where these articles all live, a really great resource. We produce articles every week on all aspects of our business, our collection management, art collecting. And if you are new to us and you think our tools were helpful, just wanted to call out, we have a free 14-day trial. You can sign up with us and try it out. We also, I lead demos all the time. So if you want to see my face again, happy to give you a walkthrough and show you, how you can organize your art shows, but also other aspects of your art collection management. We have a newsletter. Many of you probably found out about this webinar from our newsletter. We're always posting and sharing out resources and events. And then we have other additional video resources as well on different aspects of organizing, managing, sharing out your artworks, whether you're an artist or a collecting institution. So with that, we'll go to Q&A. We have plenty of time, 10 minutes. Let me see. Sue asked, 2 questions from Sue. Sue asked, how customizable is the artist upload form? Really great question. So right now we have the fields set, but we are chatting about as a team if we customize the form. And so if anyone is using the form right now and you have any feedback on that, let us know. But Kathy can speak to this. If you're not collecting all the information that's in the form, you can either let them fill it out and you just don't use it, or as Kathy has guidelines that she sends out along with the form, so artists know what to enter.
Yeah, I actually, like I said, I did a screenshot and I just kind of used Photoshop and said this one, and this one in red. So hopefully they hit with that visual, and it's been better. So. But if they do fill every single field, you simply have to just take all the information out if that's not what you want to download or show on the front side.
Yeah. Let's see. Sue has another question. How would you best facilitate the art selection process for a show via art selection committee? Would you use the QR code survey feature or use the exhibition tools? Great question. So when I showed the private viewing room, that was in lieu of, sending out emails with attachments or creating a PDF or a slideshow, when you're in person sitting around a table. You can also still use those if you'd like. The private viewing room is really great if you're doing this all virtually. And so that way you can collect and solicit your feedback all in one place. The exhibition tool really is there's the back end for people who have access to your account can access it, edit it, share out information. But for an art selection committee that's not part of your institution, you probably don't want to give them access to the exhibition tool. And the public facing side of the exhibition is really for after you have done this process and you have the artworks. You can send out QR codes if you'd like for additional information. You can also send out links. Is there anything I missed, Kathy or Zoe, to that question when you have your art selection committee meetings? Any tips?
Well, we deferred to the art teachers we were working with to curate their selections from their own classrooms. So fortunately, we were hands off in that department.
Mm-hmm. And then Heather asked about, I mentioned creating online exhibitions webinar. Yes, we do have that. Let me actually just click over to our webinars page. If you guys just want to keep the education going. Oh, I didn't show this example. Here's an example from Arts and Health with the purchase link on their artwork. But let's go to webinars. So on our website, under resources, you'll find our blog, our calls for entry page, and our webinars. And so all the webinars that we have, that we host, are recorded in here. And so we do have a webinar about online exhibitions. It was a bit ago, so it was going to be probably on the next page as I am scrolling. But we have one about how to use the online tool, so online exhibitions. We also have a webinar about how to just make your art collection more accessible. And then for the artists that are on this presentation, We also have a webinar about tips for, on the flip side, tips for applying to these artist opportunities, to these art shows, to these juried shows. And we had a really great panel, one of an administrator from NYFA, an artist and a curator, and another artist to share their best practices. See if we have any other questions. Oh, we did not discuss entry fees for shows. So Zoe, I'm assuming you did not have entry fees. Kathy,
Correct.
do you for your shows?
No, we've toyed with the idea of that, and honestly, we feel it's just not worth it. It provides a barrier for certain artists, and we just, and people honestly really appreciate the fact we don't.
Yeah, I would say, so we did not discuss, Jay, artist entry fees. Coming from Artwork Archive, I see it all, especially since we host the calls for entry page. And I would say it's like to each his own. Some institutions need those fees because they don't, that's how they're up and running. And so that goes to the admin of putting on their shows, and they try to keep them as low as possible. And then some don't because they have funding elsewhere. And then it is on the flip side for artists a consideration because artists don't have, hundreds of dollars for applying. And so on the calls for entry page that we have at Artwork Archive, they can actually filter by free opportunities that don't charge versus ones that do have an entry fee. But you'll also find on the flip side that if artists are paying, they're invested. And so caliber of entry or type of art may be different as well. So a lot of different vantage points to think about it.
We also had a question about the ability to export this information once it's uploaded.
Yeah, you can. Let me quickly share my screen. Great question. So this is again for Artwork Archive. If you're using another CMS, hopefully there's an export. Some don't, but you can. If I go into exhibitions, you can create an exhibition report of all the information about all of your exhibitions. You can also click into an exhibition and create a report however you want to view it, whether the tear sheet that Kathy mentioned or just a spreadsheet or a more formalized exhibition report.
Or even your labels for your actual show you can create too. So
yeah, it didn't even show that you can create you can create artwork labels for your show as well, but you can export your data from Artwork Archive on any plan from anywhere. So that's a really great question. Any others in our final minute? I'm checking that Q&A box. As I say that, you always have access to Artwork Archive. You can contact us at team@Artwork Archive if you have any questions. If there's a topic that you would love to see covered as a webinar, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help, to be an educational resource, a community to help everyone. There will be a recording. I see that in the chat. There will be a recording. We will send it out within 24 hours via email to all registrants along with the slides.
So if I can just add, the support from your side has been absolutely incredible. So
yeah, I agree with that.
It really is responsive. I get a live person when I need one. That's not been the case with some other platforms I've been on.
We are not robots. Yeah, we joke about that. We are
people.
Yeah, so if you have if you are an Artwork Archive client, we love to meet you and help and to assist. Cassidy is on our customer support team as well. So you'll get her. And yeah, I want to say thank you to Zoe and Kathy for taking your time and sharing your expertise in your institution's work. Thank you everyone that jumped in, and thank you Cassidy for helping with tech and fielding the questions. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Next Tuesday, we have a webinar on preserving Black artist legacies intended for artists, collectors, collecting institutions. Really excited about that panel as well. And stay tuned on the newsletter for upcoming presentations.
Great.
Bye, everyone.